Steve Malzberg.
It's so easy during this time, Trayvon Martin parallel to Emmett Till. Let me just tell you. In my mind, same thing.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. Heard everywhere on radio, the web, Newsmax TV, Roku, and apps worldwide. We're glad you're aboard. Hour number 2, and that was Oprah. Oprah's had her share of, let's say, racially inflammatory statements of late as she promotes her new movie. And I wonder if there's any coincidence talking about the fact that in her mind, Trayvon Martin and Emmett Till are the same thing, which is just, to me, totally bizarre and inconceivable that anybody could actually believe that. And, of course, claiming that she was a victim of racism in a Swiss boutique where the saleswoman refused to show her a pocketbook because it cost $36,000, and she said, no, you can't afford that. By the way, the saleswoman denies that. Joining us now to talk about what's going on with race, and actually one man who says that he's suffering from race fatigue, and that would be Derryck Green, member of the National Advisory Council of the Project 21 Black Leadership Network. Hello, Derryck. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fine. Good. You know what? It seems like everything lately since Trayvon Martin, and including Trayvon Martin's case, has been turned into a racial issue.
It has been, and what's interesting is it's not just the Trayvon Martin incident. It's primarily since the president was campaigning and since he's been elected. It just seems like every slight that comes up, or every opportunity that people who see the world through race-colored glasses, every time they have an opportunity to invoke race, they do so. And it culminated with the George Zimmerman verdict, and it prompted me. I was just so exhausted of hearing it over and over and over, not because we're talking about race, it's just the manner in which we're talking about race. It seems to be a very one-sided, dictatorial continuance of a narrative that we hear going on and on and on, and we're really not discussing the serious concerns that affect not only race relations in America, which have gotten a lot better, by the way, but some of the serious issues and concerns that affect the black community.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're absolutely right. But, I'm not surprised, and you could tell me if you are or not, that the usual people like Jesse Jackson and, would say that Trayvon Martin is Emmett Till, and the Al Sharptons of the world, demanding civil rights charges be brought against Zimmerman, et cetera. But, I wonder if Jackson really believes that, or he just says that. And in my mind, he probably just says that. But then there's Oprah. And, again, not a stupid woman by any means. How could somebody actually say that Emmett Till, a young boy, who for daring to look at a white woman, was hunted down, pulled out of his own bed that night, murdered brutally with wire around his neck, thrown into the river, in Mississippi by two racist brothers, that how could she sit there during an interview in 2013 as a billionaire and say, yeah, Trayvon Martin is Emmett Till, it's the same exact thing? Could she possibly believe that, in your opinion?
No, she can't. And what you said in the intro, I think there's some truth to that. I think that this, comes in combination with her having a movie coming out, and the movie, I wouldn't doubt that at all. But for Oprah, a billionaire who made the majority of her fortune by and through the support of white America, to sit on television to say that America still has racial tendencies similar to what they were in 1955 is absurd. And I think that she should be called on it loudly. She should be ridiculed for it as well. There's no way in my mind that she believes that. As with Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, I don't think that they believe that either. I think Jesse Jackson has seen the amazing transition that the country has gone through, from the 1960s up till today. I mean, Jesse Jackson himself is a millionaire. So I think that for Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton, what they have found is that continuing to stoke racial emotions, manipulate the emotions of a large segment of the American population is a very lucrative business.
Absolutely.
I really don't think that they hold those truths internally, but I know they know that they have news outlets who will pick them up. They know that they have organizations that will support what they say. They know that there are organizations out there that will donate to their causes so as to not be accused of racism. So it's a very not so secret form of extortion that those two gentlemen are engaged in.
We're talking right now, ladies and gentlemen, to Derryck Green, member of the National Advisory Council of the Project 21 Black Leadership Network, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. And all this, as you point out in a piece I read about your race fatigue, ignores the so-called progressives and the race hustlers, whatever you want to call them, and maybe they're different, maybe some of them are the same, especially when those who are black are pointing. I think you said that they're pointing their fingers outward, and that means they're not pointing their fingers inward. Now, President Obama addressed the problem of or the admission that there's a disproportionate amount of crime and violence in black communities. And he said, without making excuses, he kind of said, but there's a history there of, well, he blamed it on poverty and a history. And I wondered aloud at the time, what's he talking about? Is he blaming what's going on in the black community today as far as violence on slavery? Is he blaming it on Jim Crow? I mean, what the heck's he blaming it on?
Well, notice that he's doing exactly what racial grievance industry profiteers do, and they always point out to an external force that's the reason, the motivator of what ails Black America. You know, he and those like Michael Eric Dyson and those type of people will always say, well, it's the effects of slavery. The problem is the data just doesn't bear that out. I mean, there's data that suggests that even first and second generation blacks born after slavery, you know, didn't commit the types of crimes that are being committed today, and they were much more poor than the blacks in America are today. So it's not the effects of slavery, and it's not the effects of poverty. Poverty just doesn't cause crime. Crime causes poverty. So what the president should have said in his no excuse making is this: yes, there is racial discrimination. It does not exist the way it did 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. That being said, we are not going to allow racial discrimination to be an impediment to Black America controlling what we can control. You know, the high incidence of illegitimacy isn't a racial issue. It's not because of white racism. The fact that blacks aren't getting married in high numbers as they used to isn't a product of white racism. You know, the fact that blacks abort so many babies disproportionate to their numbers in the population isn't a result of white racism. And so what he should have said in his no excuse pledge was to point some of these things out and say, well, as I just said, racial discrimination will always be with us, but we can't allow that. It's not the impediment that it once was. You know, to take a situation from history, you know, can we imagine if the Jews sat around and said, we're not going to do anything ourselves until we fully eradicate anti-Semitism? You know, they would have killed themselves off. You know, they wouldn't have been around. They wouldn't have been as successful as they are around the world. Well, to me, that's an excellent model to take. Let's not wait for racial discrimination to end, because it will never fully be eradicated. Let's go and start doing what we can do to improve our lot in life.
Don't let it defeat you. One more question, Derryck. Where do you believe the black, so-called, by me right now, the black conservative movement is headed? You know, the media, I think the media, by promoting the people on the other side and giving people like Al Sharpton a radio show and a TV show and tearing apart any black conservative, as they do with Hispanic conservatives and female conservatives. But the most recent, of course, is Dr. Ben Carson. You know, he should shut up. He's a surgeon. What does he know? Blah, 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 blah. Any black conservative that comes along, the mainstream media will destroy or try to destroy. So with that as a backdrop, if you will, I mean, can the black conservative movement pick up steam, gain steam, and expand and widen their reach?
I think it already has. I think that what you're seeing is the more that we see blacks come out and speak against that racial narrative that's constantly being offered up in the media, the more that blacks see that, the more courage is going to be built. And, you know, I do believe strength in numbers. It's, you know, to go out and stand alone isn't for everybody. But the more that black Americans see that there are more black conservatives standing up, and they're standing up courageously to deal with the issues that plague not only America but Black America as well, I think what you're going to see and have already been seeing is the tide starting to shift very slowly. You know that the Black conservative message or the conservative message period is really doing its job. The louder you see those people condemn people like Dr. Ben Carson, the louder you see them try to condemn Allen West and Black conservatives like that, the louder and the harder that they act to try to silence those types of people, you know that the message is becoming more and more effective. And so I think with what we've seen over the last 5 years, we'll continue to see over the next 3 in terms of economic policy and socioeconomics as it relates to minority communities. And I think more Blacks are starting to wake up to say, listen, it was fun to elect the first Black president, but our lives socioeconomically have gotten worse since he's been there. Maybe we should start to reassess our racial allegiance and start voting and identifying with people who hold upright character.
Yeah, 40% unemployment among Black teens. And by the way, imagine if George Bush or someone who might be running for president on the Republican side in 2016 mispronounced Medgar Evers' name as Hillary did yesterday or the day or today. And of course, you won't hear it anywhere on the main news stations, but you would have heard it if it had been a Republican. Hey, listen, I really appreciate you coming on, Derryck, and we'll speak again, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure.